Hazard pay is back on, baby. It's in the third stimulus package. But what happened to essential workers under the HEROES Act of that $10,000? In this throwback video, I explain hazard pay, how it's changed over time to now an earned income tax credit of $1,502 if you made less than $25,000 during the pandemic and are 19 years or older. Enjoy this overnight to LALATE video about hazard pay.
The Republicans are set to debut their stimulus package and stimulus check bill next week, and Chuck Schumer calls it a little shop of horrors. He really does see too much Broadway. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is LALATE. Hope you're good and safe. This is afternoon's LALATE, part of the 3.5-hour programming block every day on this channel, LALATE, which now is the net's fastest growing financial news network. LALATE afternoon starts every day at 3:30 with the check, then goes to hazard pay, then FPUC, and then finally rent. Thank you for tuning in. This video covers everything about hazard pay that is under the second stimulus package of the HEROES Act, but is not in the bill that gets debuted next week. So what should you know, what should you think about, and what should you predict as to seeing the potential of $10,000 landing in your bank account sometime soon? Here's the details. Additionally, I'll be going over a shocking new report that talks about hazard pay and what's called a K, as in Kardashian, shaped recovery. More about that in a second. Next week won't have anything for hazard pay in it. It's a $500 billion bill from the Republicans that will be introduced to the Senate that will only include a few items. These are items that everyone agrees upon. That doesn't include a lot of, difficult numbers. I mean, this is something that Larry Kudlow can look at without a calculator or, without 2 Advil. It involves stimulus checks, FPUC, school funding, and then finally some money for testing. Very, very simple stuff. That's why it's only $500 billion. It's also intended to be simple so that stimulus checks get in the hand of Americans right away. As President Trump confirmed today via Mike Pence, his VP, he wants stimulus checks to go out right away. It's been enough time waiting. That's incredible, great news. So what about hazard pay? Will you ever see that $10,000? Will it ever land in your bank account? You've watched the videos of this channel every day at 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You wonder, okay, I know I'm eligible for hazard pay. I know I would get the $10,000 if my boss applies for hazard pay. I've then followed your advice of this channel, LALATE. I've spoken to my boss and ensured that they get their application on right away for hazard pay, because you explained to me that, hey, hazard pay is a diminishing fund. It's there, and that you need to rush in and get the application on file. You remember that video I did over 2 weeks ago where I talked about state hazard pays, and in one state they allocated, what was it, like 30 million, because it's a small state, and they went live with the application, and within 2 days or 3 days, it was all used up, the money. And one business alone got 8 million of the 20 or 30 million grant program. It's that type of situation. You understand the urgency of it, so you're really on the ball for ensuring that you get your hazard pay, knowing when it's approved, knowing when it's coming out, knowing how to apply, knowing to talk to your employer to get them to apply. You've got that under attack. The question is, when and where? Well, first of all, we know it's not next week. Next week's bill won't have hazard pay, $500 billion bill. Where hazard pay will likely land is in the next bill. Now, when would that bill be introduced to the Senate by Republicans? I had initially said October. I said that earlier in the week because at that point I said we have that federal balanced budget issue that is due September 30th that only has 15 days to negotiate. It's a very cumbersome thing. And I said that will undoubtedly take the efforts and time schedules of Senate Republicans and Democrats and House Republicans and Democrats before they get to this third stimulus package, potentially of hazard pay. Well, the great news overnight is that that deal has been already hatched. Nancy Pelosi and Steve Mnuchin met in a private meeting yesterday, and they didn't discuss hairstyles, they didn't discuss stimulus, but they did discuss that package. And they said, you know what, we're going to do this federal budget deal right now. So they informally agreed upon it, instantly. Yes, really. Hard to believe that two people that can't even get in the same room for 3 weeks got something done so quickly. They additionally said it would not be tied up to anything stimulus, so stimulus would not anchor it. It would not anchor stimulus. It wouldn't be like a Javita Carranza scarf strangleholding something. No, 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 no. So that was really great news. So now the move for hazard pay under a third stimulus package after the one next week can be sooner. The third stimulus package is about 650 billion. Now, understand that when you say, okay, LA, you just said 650 billion and the one next week is 500 billion, but that doesn't add up to 1.3 trillion, which is what the president offered last week. Exactly. There is room for this third stimulus package where hazard pay may land to enlarge. And this is incredibly great news. It's incredibly great news for hazard pay because ultimately you want to ensure that hazard pay is not diluted. You want to ensure that the eligibility classifications of hazard pay are not cut. You want to ensure that it stays at $10,000 and $5,000. You want to ensure that it's based upon a $13 an hour calculation. And yet, there's that one thing. It's called silence. Not Silence of the Lambs. You know, some people do want to eat this up alive. But there's silence. The people who authored hazard pay, the Democrats in the House, the people who passed the HEROES Act, where hazard pay is written, have had a lot to say about a lot of stuff over the last, what has it been, 3 weeks that I've done hazard pay videos every single day at 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. How many times have they talked about hazard pay? How many times have they said we're not going to do a stimulus deal unless there's hazard pay in there? How many times have they said, hazard pay is perfectly written, we're not going to change it, we're not going to negotiate against hazard pay? How many times have they said we won't do standalone bills unless there's hazard pay in it? How many times have they said we won't do a skinny bill unless there's hazard pay in it? How many times have they said next week's bill we won't approve unless there's hazard pay in it? They've literally never mentioned hazard pay. And sure enough, I've seen your tweets, and I really appreciate them because that's what you got to do. You got to tag your politicians, and if you think you qualify for hazard pay, and you really think it's been left behind in negotiations and interviews and press junkets and press sit-downs with congressional leaders talking about stimulus, it has. It just has. I mean, today is Beyonce's birthday. Congratulations, Beyonce. But, could Beyonce give a shout out to hazard pay? It's just, it's getting no attention. And the thing that gets no attention is just not a good thing. Sometimes you want to ignore certain things like bad hairstyles. But if you're trying to negotiate a bill and the bill has something in it and you want the thing and you don't mention it for weeks on end, then you don't know what's going on. Bottom line is, if you want hazard pay to be part of that third stimulus package, or not forgotten by the wayside in any stimulus package, you need to be tweeting your congressional leaders. Checks are so critical. Stimulus checks are so critical, but also is stimulus. Also is stimulus for hazard pay. These are frontline workers who put their lives on the ground. And what's ironic about this situation, and you know what I'm about to say, is that no one has ever said they don't want to give stimulus to hazard pay individuals. The president has said in tweets in the last 2 weeks that you need to get money. Nancy Pelosi has said that she supports frontline workers. But why has no one ever said anything specifically about whether or not it's surviving negotiations? I just don't know. It's like whoever is tightening that scarf to prevent people from talking about hazard pay needs to relax the scarf around the necks, because we need to hear where your position is on hazard pay. But this position is what, at the 8-minute mark of this video, is something you absolutely have to listen to right now. This impacts every viewer of this channel right now, and it's something that really no one else discusses, except a major report published today that says there is new worries that the economic recovery under the first stimulus package and the second stimulus package will be a K, like Kardashian, shaped recovery. No, it has nothing to do with Kim. It's just a K. Some viewers will be like, did you say A? No, I said K. A? K. like Kardashian, a K-shaped recovery. Why should you be worried about a K-shaped recovery? And what is a K-shaped recovery? A K-shaped recovery means that there is a very uneven split of recovery between different economic groups and different businesses. Yeah. It basically says that perhaps we are in a K-shaped recovery in which the rich are rebounding very quickly and doing very well. And banks and Wall Street are among the industries rebounding very well. But that the poor are not rebounding. And that mom and pop and shops and restaurants and general retail are crumbling. This is a very big concern. How is it explained? Joseph Bruselas, chief economist at RSM, explains the K-shaped recovery is just the reiteration of what we call the bifurcation of the economy during the great financial crisis. It's really about growing inequality since the early 1980s across the country and the economy. When we talk K, the upper path of the K is clearly financial markets. The lower path is the real economy, and the two are separated. So what he's saying is that if you look at the K, the shape of the K, the upper part of the K goes up at the top, and then the other part of the K goes down to the bottom. It's saying that the wealthy, the banks, and Wall Street are on the top part of the K. They are zooming right up. And that poor people will get poorer, and small independent solo businesses, mom and pop shops, restaurants, anything that is just very local is going to crumble more. This is not a new worry. Let's not get lost in different letters of the alphabet, said Treasury Secretary. The different parts of the economy that need more work, said Steve Mnuchin. But he hasn't done it. This is not a new worry. Jerome Powell was on a Zoom chat just last week, the Federal Reserve chairman, and said, hey, he is deeply worried that there could be a very bifurcated recovery in which certain groups and economic groups and business groups will be left behind. It's a good start to think that the Federal Reserve, based upon 2 decades of structural change in the economy and rapidly growing changing demographic structure in the United States, decided to walk back its long-held preference to act to preventively against inflation when expectations are clearly anchored. The Federal Reserve believes that policies in the past did not particularly help certain economic groups and has now tried to fix them. But the use of devices, cloud, and internet services was bound to skyrocket while the rest of the economy took a nosedive, like airlines, energy, shopping malls, offices, and hospitality. This is what another analyst, Marco Kolonovic, head of micro-quantitative derivatives research at JP Chase, explains, which is basically, he's saying certain industries are really rebounding well in this economy now, where other parts of the industry are absolutely crumbling by the wayside. Those that are rebounding and doing well are the obvious ones: cloud, internet services. But those absolutely taking a nosedive, he says, are airlines, energy, shopping malls, offices, hospitality. This has created enormous inequality, not just in the performance of economic segments, but in society more broadly. On the one side, tech fortunes reach all-time highs, while lower income, blue-collar workers and those that cannot work remotely suffer the most. It's important to understand that when we talk about hazard pay, because the hazard pay sometimes are blue-collar workers. They are shipping and trucking, drivers, delivery, grocery store, general maintenance of buildings. Those are not cloud. Those aren't internet services. And those are people that really need that hazard pay. These are people that really need that $10,000. These are people that really need that $13 an hour supplement over their base level benefits. And if you don't give that, what's going to happen? Steve Ricciuto, chief economist at Mizuho Securities, says because every business cycle since the 1990s has been one where there's been some K characteristic to it, that suggests this one's going to be much the same. There have been some credit cycles. Raising waters don't always lift all the boats the same way, but some boats are little tiny lifeboats without much baggage, and some other boats are heavier baggage that need more energy to lift. Those are the ones that have real credit problems. Clearly, some areas are going to come back slower to come back at all, says Yuma May, chief economist at Biome Wealth. But I don't buy in the K-shape so much. So this person doesn't agree upon it. I think it's more of a matter of whether some industries will pick up and others won't. The external shot, of course, is that it's dramatic and that some needed more efforts. Bottom line is, for purpose of hazard pay, is that you don't want to feel as though you've been left behind. You don't want to hear the next week's stimulus package includes stimulus checks, which do not conflict with hazard pay, by the way. I get that question a lot. Includes FPUC, which may not cover you because you worked. Remember, hazard pay concerns people who are working or were working. And now, of course, understand if you've been laid off from hazard pay, you still qualify for FPUC. But generally, if you were still working for and are looking for that hazard pay money, or have worked in the pandemic and are waiting for that hazard pay money, then what's happening next week may not so much impact you financially. And so that's why you're on high alert about what happens the week after or the week after that for the third stimulus package. I'm on alert for it as well. And the way we stay on alert is go to the Funds channel, hit the subscribe and alert button so you get alert when a new video goes live, or you get alert when a major development occurs. I will send out a tweet immediately. If you're dropping comments to this channel, which I love, and you're a subscriber but you don't see a little red button next to you, go into the pinned comment to this video where I explain how to unsubscribe and resubscribe, so ensure that you see a little red thing next to you. That ensures you're a subscriber, and I answer questions whenever possible, first with subscribers before non-subscribers. Next, like this video. Liking this video helps it, not just the video itself, but helps other people, so that people who are looking for questions, answers, and more details about hazard pay find this video as opposed to another video that says it's supposed to be about hazard pay but ultimately has to do with something like changing a lamp fixture in a house you're flipping. It's just like, what? Coming up next is FPUC, always at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. As always, stay informed, stay focused, stay smiling. There's my plane, and save LA for more.